So today we're going to unpack a lie that didn't just spread, it was practically brought to life, animated into a real-world threat with some seriously dangerous consequences. We're talking, of course, about the wild conspiracy theory that tried to link 5G technology to the COVID-19 pandemic. How on earth did that happen? Let's find out.
Okay, so where do we even begin with this? Well, here's our game plan. First, we'll break down what the theory actually claimed. Then, we're going to trace how it just exploded online. After that, we'll look at the real physical damage it caused. Then, of course, we're going to bring in the cold, hard science to debunk it. And finally, we'll tackle the biggest question of all. Why did so many people fall for it?
All right, let's get right into it. What exactly were people saying? What was the core claim here?
So the basic idea was shockingly simple. This new 5G tech was somehow responsible for the new virus. Now, the details got a little fuzzy. Some people said 5G towers were frying our immune systems, while others claimed the virus was literally being broadcast through radio waves. Scientifically, it's total nonsense, but you can see why it was so catchy. Its simplicity made it incredibly contagious.
So, how does something that starts as a fringe comment turn into a global inferno? This is the story of how that lie was animated, step by painful step.
Just look at this timeline. It's kind of insane how fast this all happened. You see the first little whispers online in January 2020, but the real firestarter was in April, an interview with a Belgian doctor, who, by the way, later admitted he hadn't actually checked his facts, goes viral. And then a platform like InfoWars grabs it and hits the gas, turning that little spark into a full-blown global blaze.
And here's the thing, this wasn't just people randomly sharing stuff they saw. Oh no. When researchers dug into over 22,000 tweets, they found evidence of what they called massive inauthentic activity. This suggests it was a deliberate, coordinated push. This wasn't just misinformation spreading by accident, it was disinformation being actively weaponized. And this is where things really take off. It's the amplifier effect. When huge celebrities share these ideas with millions of followers, it gives the theory a shine of legitimacy it absolutely does not deserve. All of a sudden, it's not a fringe idea anymore. It's being talked about everywhere. And what happens when you do all that? Well, the lie starts to stick. Polling showed that about 1 in 5 people in both the UK and the US thought, yeah, there might be something to this. Think about that for a second. The idea wasn't just floating around, it was actually taking root. And when ideas like this take root, the consequences can be very, very real.
Okay, so this is where it gets really serious. We're going to see what happens when words on a screen leap into the real world and, well, start actual fires.
This isn't a hypothetical anymore. We are talking about real arson. In a single month, April 2020, more than 30 cell towers across the UK were literally set on fire or vandalized. This was vital communication infrastructure in huge cities like Belfast, Liverpool, and Birmingham being attacked by people who were fueled by this lie.
And it wasn't just about property damage. Real people were targeted. Around 80 separate incidents were recorded where telecom engineers, people just doing their jobs to keep us all connected during a pandemic, were being harassed, threatened, and even physically abused.
All right, enough is enough. Let's bring in the big guns, science. It's time to completely dismantle this thing, piece by piece, and show why it's just fundamentally wrong.
Okay, the entire theory just falls apart when you look at the absolute basics. You've got a virus. That's biology. It spreads through little droplets when we cough or sneeze. Then you've got 5G. That's physics. It sends data through the air using radio waves. They are two completely different things, operating in two completely different scientific realms. It's like saying a whale can fly just because a bird can swim. It just doesn't make sense.
Professor Adam Finn from the University of Bristol put it perfectly. You don't even need a complex scientific breakdown. The two things just aren't connected. As he says, they're as different as chalk in cheese. Simple as that.
Let's just run through the science, point by point. Does 5G weaken your immune system? Nope, the energy levels are way, way too low. Can a virus hitch a ride on a radio wave? No way, that's science fiction, not virology. Did COVID only pop up in places with 5G? Absolutely not. It was all over the world in countries that had zero 5G. And finally, can these waves even get into your body to do damage? No, they're non-ionizing, meaning they can't even get past your skin.
And honestly, if you need just one fact to completely torpedo this whole idea, here it is. The pandemic was raging in countries like Iran and in huge parts of the UK that had absolutely no 5G coverage at all. So if 5G was the cause, how is that possible? Well, it's not. The whole theory just collapses right there.
And look, this isn't just one scientist's opinion. We're talking about a global consensus. The World Health Organization, the FCC, the top scientific journals, literally every major health and communications authority on the planet is saying the exact same thing. There is zero link. It's not a debate. The science is settled.
So, this leads us to the final and maybe the trickiest question of all. If the science is so crystal clear, why? Why did so many people buy into this?
I mean, try to put yourself back in those early days of the pandemic. It was scary, right? We were all confused, and we were facing this invisible enemy we didn't understand. A conspiracy theory, in a weird way, offers comfort. It gives a complex, scary problem a simple, visible villain you can point to, that 5G tower down the street. And this is such a classic misinformation tactic. You take a tiny little seed of a real concern, like, is all this new technology safe? And you water it with fear and uncertainty until it grows into this giant, monstrous lie. It hijacks a legitimate question to sell a completely baseless fantasy.
So this whole saga really leaves us with a huge question, not just about 5G, but about, well, everything. When we're scared, when there's a crisis, facts can get blurry, and a lie can suddenly look very appealing. The real challenge for all of us, then, is how do we stay grounded? When fear is pulling us in one direction, how do we find our way back to the truth?